Hello and welcome back to Football Index Moneyball with the next instalment in the Pick of the Day series. For today's pick, I've gone for a young defender out on loan from one of the top European teams after signing for a pretty significant fee in the summer. In the video today, we'll look at how after a breakthrough to the first team at his prior PB League club last season, he managed to play 65% of the minutes and assisted just over 10% of their total league goals during a tough relegation battle. How his transfer went something under the radar due to the fact that he was immediately sent back out on loan to another PB League team this season, and how his struggles for minutes has led to an almost 30% decline from his peak over a period in which the market has been growing rapidly, especially for players of his age and position. Then to finish off, we have the usual profit target analysis. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. If you want to be notified when new videos come out, you can hit the bell icon, or you can follow me on Twitter by searching for @IndexMoneyball. If you're new to Football Index and you haven't signed up yet, I have some referral links in the video description for both the Index and for Football Index Edge, so if you use those you'll be helping to support the channel and to keep the content coming. Also, after a few requests for further help with portfolios, I've set up a Patreon page which I've left a link to in the description below. For those that don't know, this is a way that you can support YouTube channels if you're enjoying the videos, whilst also gaining access to some exclusive content and advice. Although I really enjoy making the videos, the aim is to try and generate some revenue from the channel eventually, so this is just one of the options available to me. And then one final plug here. I was actually on the High, Wide and Handsome podcast this week with John Niels, so if you're interested in hearing that, then it's going to be released on Monday, January 20th, and you should go give John a follow on his two Twitter accounts, @IrishFI1 and @HWAH Podcast. If you haven't heard of his podcast before, then I definitely recommend giving it a look, and if you do give it a listen, make sure you leave him a review. So the player I've gone for today is Pedro Porro. Porro is a 20-year-old right-back playing at Real Valladolid in Spain on loan from Manchester City. In summer, City bought him from Girona for just under £14 million after they were relegated from La Liga. As I mentioned in the intro, Porro actually managed to play a decent amount of football. After making his senior debut in the first game of the season, he went on to feature 32 times in the league with an average of 70 minutes per game. So for a 19-year-old, that was pretty good going. He also managed 4 assists, which at first look doesn't sound too impressive, but when you consider that Girona only scored 37 goals, this is a promising sign for how productive he could be in a couple of years with a bit more experience and a better team around him. As far as his price goes, if we take a look at his 1-year graph, you can see that he peaked in summer at 77p on August 7th, which was the day before his transfer to City and a couple of days before he was loaned out. So I've actually owned Porro for a while now, and I found him through looking up Football Manager Wonder Kids. I don't remember seeing any media around his signing for City or his loan move, so I think it's probably fair to say that most people missed it, as I was fairly on top of all things FI back in August, so I think he might have flown slightly under the radar for most new traders especially. The one thing I really like about this graph is the fact that his price looks like it's had some resistance for the last 2 months, hovering around the 60p mark. This is actually something we talked about in the podcast, and it's something I've been looking at more and more recently as I search for new players to make the videos on. So moving on to Porro's transfer march, we can see here that he's a Spain under-21 international, and there's something I wanted to point out here. If we scroll down, you can see that he actually picked up an injury and missed the under-21 European Championships last summer, but he started all but one of the games that he wasn't injured for since he was first called up last year. So I think if he'd been fit, then he probably would have been part of the team that won the competition. And if you were on the index back in June, then you'd know that a lot of the players from that tournament benefited from the exposure and got some big increases in value off the back of it. So this is another situation that could have worked in our favour now in terms of keeping the entry price down. Looking at his overall career stats, he has 52 games with 4 goals and 4 assists at a rate of just over 0.2 per 90. But he has struggled this season with his contributions so far, without any goals or assists in his 12 appearances in all competitions. Then for his positional stats, and this is another positive for the player, you can see that he's played half of his games at right mid and half at right back. So this says a lot for his attacking ability and also for the possibility that he could get some high PB scores if he does start some games higher up the field. For his detailed stats, I've compiled all his La Liga numbers for the past 2 seasons, and you can see that he has some pretty respectable figures of 0.9 per 90 when it comes to key passes, but his attempted dribbles and tackles look pretty encouraging at 2.3 and 2.1, with 1.3 successful in each of those areas. I would like to see his shots per game and passes a bit higher, but I think it's definitely a good platform to build on for a young defender. Now moving on to the profit target analysis, as usual with young players, you always get a lot of options to compare to. So I managed to keep it to all 20-year-old defenders who've not yet won any dividends. One thing I've been struggling with recently is whether or not you should compare like for like only. For example, right back to right back, or could you compare right backs to left backs, or even all defenders, as in reality they compete for the same dividends. I've tended to stick for like positions, but not in terms of left versus right sided. But I'm starting to think that this is a bit of a pointless limitation, as the aim would be to find the best player in each category versus each position. The exception being if you think that the index may change the scoring matrix to favour a certain position in the future, but to be honest, this is a bit of a gamble, so for this one, I just went for any position as long as they're a defender. But let me know in the comments what you think, as I'm interested to hear what other people's opinion on this is. And the other thing that I decided might be useful to keep the video relevant for a little longer is I included alternate prices for the pick, in case his price spikes. So again, let me know if you think this is a worthwhile addition or not in the comments. For my alternate purchases today, I went for Evan Ndicka at Frankfurt and Leandro Bellardi, a centre-back at Dortmund. I'll start with Bellardi, as this is the easiest one. He's only played a total of 13 minutes in the Bundesliga so far in his career, so although I think this is a good price for a young player at a big team, I think the fact that Porro is more likely to get game time while out on loan, and the fact that when he returns he'll be at City so he'll be playing in England, swings it in his favour pretty easily. For Ndicka, it wasn't as easy, as he plays semi-regularly at either left-back or centre-back for Frankfurt, and they're in the latter stages of the Europa League, so that's to his benefit. But they have got a pretty tough draw against RB Salzburg. When it comes to young players' career goals and assists, it can be a bit unreliable as they often include youth league results, but you can only go off the information available, so I think it gives us a bit of an idea of the potential attacking threat of a player still. For Ndicka, he has career goals and assists record of 0.1 per 90 and Porro has 0.22 per 90. This, along with the fact that he's a City loanee and that his price is lower, were the main factors that swayed me to Porro for this video, but I actually do own Ndicka as well. For my low target, I went for Diogo Dalot, a right back at Man United. I thought this was a pretty good comparison as they're both the same age, they're both right backs and they both play for major English clubs. Personally, I think the fact that Porro's away on loan is a bonus, as he should hopefully get more game time, so I see this price as a pretty safe estimate of where Porro should be sitting if he has a decent PB score or two and people realise that he's on loan from City. Dalot has the advantage in career goals and assists record with 0.27 per 90, but he's played less senior football overall and he's been pretty injury prone with only one league appearance this season. So bearing this in mind, I actually think that the price for Dalot is still good value too, and he's another player that I do own. I'm really comfortable with this as my low target, bearing in mind that this pick is definitely more long-term focused and I'm really looking to hold this player beyond the 12-month target period that I usually use for my picks. For my mid-target, I went for Sebastian Borno, who's a centre-back at FC Köln. Now this is a bit of an interesting one, as although Borno has had a couple of decent PB scores this season, I'd imagine his price is so high because he's expected to get a transfer rather than as an expected PB winner. Which makes me think what kind of price Porro would be if he'd been playing as much as he did last season and City were being linked with buying him today. For expected goals and assists, Porro has a pretty decent advantage with 0.22 versus 0.13 per 90. And the main difference between the two players is that, as I mentioned, Borno's had a couple of decent PB scores with a peak of 198 and another score above 150 this season. Porro so far doesn't have any scores above 150, but he's also had limited opportunities this year on the new matrix. I think if he was to break into the team in the second half of the season and post a similar peak score, then this price would probably be pretty attainable quickly. Then for my high target, I went for Max Aarons at Norwich. Now I want to stress that although I'm using Aarons as a benchmark, I don't actually think this is the best high target due to the fact that he's English. But if you were to take 20% off his price to account for this, then you'd still be well above the 100% threshold that I usually look for. And with the fact that Porro could be at City this time next year, I think it makes this a more reasonable target if you also allow some growth in the index before then. If we compare the stats of the two players, Porro again has the far superior goal contributions versus Aarons' 0.1 per 90. And even with the PB performances, there isn't too much between them, with neither hitting a score above 150 yet. The only advantage that Aarons has is the fact that he's likely to get some transfer speculation if Norwich go down. But again, I think the fact that Porro is already a City player is more valuable personally. So this leaves us with a profit target range of 34% for the low, 66% for the mid, and 171% for the high, based on the price when I made the video. And then you can also see how the alternate prices would affect those returns. For me, this is a purely long-term hold, and I'm really looking for somewhere around my usual 100% return mark. So the high target is more of a benchmark to show that there's still room between Borno and Aarons for Porro to settle and still be a great pick. But I think this set of targets, combined with the decline in price due to his lack of opportunities, has created a great combination of limited risk and potential profit. That's all we've got for you on today's pick. Again, if you enjoyed the video, like, comment and subscribe. Also, if you know someone else who might like the video, then sharing with them would really help me out. There are links in the description for signing up to Football Index and Football Index Edge if you haven't already. And don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel for more strategy videos and the other picks of the day. Most picks are long-term holds with depressed prices for some reason or other, so often the picks can still offer the same value, if not better, a few weeks after. And the research methods and reasoning can help if you're new to the index and want to learn to analyse your own players. Thanks for watching, good luck on the index.